Okay, so as I mentioned in the last video on the Panzer III build log, I'm going to be putting Friulmodel tracks on that kit. And so I wanted to do sort of a tutorial or basically just a general rundown of what I do to assemble Friulmodel tracks and show you the tools and the materials I use. It does not differ very much from the materials you do get in the box, but I find that what you do get in the box isn't all that great. Now that's of course aside from the tracks themselves. The tracks are fantastic. They really are beautifully molded and obviously being metal and just like the real ones, act and sag and articulate in the way that the real ones do. So let's take a look at what we get in the box. Okay, so when you open up the box, you get a couple of bags of tracks. Generally, they are sided. So you'll notice that it'll have very fine bolt detail on one side. Now obviously that track goes like this. So this would be the left hand, the left side track with the bolt detail on that side. Generally they're very beautifully molded. I always go through them all, and sometimes they have, maybe have like a little burr or something just from, and then I will just flatten them out. And because they're white metal, the metal is somewhat softer, so doesn't take much to remove any sort of imperfections. I always make sure that the guide horn, if they're hollow, take a X-Acto knife and just remove any flash if there is any, and just basically go through them like that, each and every one. It takes a bit of time, but the results when you're finished are well worth it. And yeah, so okay, so what do I do? Okay, so let's look at the tools first. Okay, so first of all, I use a pin vise. Now, pin vise is a little handheld sort of drill where you have a chuck where you put very tiny drills in there. This one is by Tamiya. It's a cheaper one, but it's pretty good quality, and I like it. And it has a swivel on the back because you want to be able to swivel the drill, and it rotates in your palm with this thing as a stabilizer. Pin vise. I use a file. Now this is to file down the excess brass rod that I'll be using, and I'll show you that momentarily. A pair of pliers. These ones do not have any grip on them or teeth. It doesn't matter. Anything that you could use to push the brass rod into the track links. And finally, a sprue cutter. You want to have a cheap one. This one was $10 or so. You do not want to use your expensive Tamiya pointed sprue cutters or your God Hand or whatever you use, because you're going to be cutting the brass rod with these. Okay. Now, brass rod. I use from K&S. It's 20 thou or 0.020 brass rod, and these are cheap. I think you get 5 in a package, and I think they're probably around $4 or something. And generally, maybe 3 or 4 packages will easily do a vehicle. And so what I do is I just cut it in half like that, and I put it aside. So there's that. Now, the parts. Okay, so here are the links. Now, you could easily just put the links together. There's the brass rod will only go in one way. So find out which is which, and you could put it in that way. But it's going to be difficult. So what I do is I put in a slightly larger drill bit. So this is a 0.021, and the brass rod is 0.020. And I usually have it that much more, that fraction larger, so that it's not only is it easy for the rod to go in, but there's a little bit of movement, though it still remains somewhat taut on the thing. So it doesn't. You don't want to have the holes drilled larger than the rod, because when you're assembling or when you're applying them to the model, if they're too big, the actual rods can come out. So I prepare every track link by just boring out the hole like that. And that just removes all the flash from when it was molded and allows it to... Oh yeah, this is the other way. See, I assembled the other hand, so the last time I did this was in a certain way. So it's kind of hard to manipulate, but there you go. So you just... All right. Just make sure it goes in straight. Now you don't want to go too far that you go through the where the molded bolt detail on the end is. Just make sure that it's... There's another one. This is the easy way, this part here. This one, a bit of a pain. But anyways, you don't want to press too hard. You want to use a brand new drill for every time you do this. I buy a pack of, I think they come in 10 or 12. It's like a little box like this of like 0.021 little container, and it's got, I don't know, like a dozen or 10 or so of these drills. Because obviously they're metal on metal, it's going to wear down the drill bit and wear it out a little bit. So generally 1 or 2 little drills is good enough for an entire kit. So, and the first 2 are always a little bit difficult, but you just sort of manipulate it in there and then just drill it again. The 2 together, like so. Just to make it, without a doubt, clear in there. And then I take my brass rod, get it started in the hole, and then I take the pliers and just go the rest of the way. Now you'll probably be able to see, I'm not sure if you can there, but it's only going to go so far. If you want to, you can just cut these to the size that you think you need, and that's fine. Then you know you won't have to go any further. But you don't want to press too hard so that it completely deforms the edge of the link or goes through. And yeah, I learned many times you don't want to do it too hard, because the rod can go through your finger too, which has happened to me. So once you get it on there like so, then I just trim the excess like that. So you have 2 together. Now it's going to be somewhat stiff and a little bit difficult at first, but a little maneuvering like so, and eventually they go together just fine. So let's try another one. Again, make sure you have to do this for every track link. It's time consuming, but it's rewarding in the end. And before you know it, you have an entire side done. Now it's good to just maybe do a little research depending on the vehicle you're doing, how many track links they have per side. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's exactly how many are going to be on each side of your track runs. Sometimes it varies, 1 or 2, or depending on how scale the actual tank is. Okay, so here's the other one. Put it this way. Actually, you know what? I find that way is easier. Again, take the rod, get it started, take your pliers, I don't think I did this. There we go. Sometimes you can get excess metal stuck in the slot, so the drill just kind of gets it out there. Let's try that. There we go. You can tell. There. Okay, trim that off. There you go. And once you get a certain amount, like, you know, at least 8 or 9, you can bend it, you can, you know, just get the flex in the actual track link. Now, you're going to have sort of a cut edge on the end. So I always take a file and just flatten that edge. Right? Now keep in mind, this side, which we've just filed down, is going to be on the inside of the tank. So this will be the left-hand side here. So that is basically how you do it. That is how you make track links. And eventually you get to the point where you have a whole run. And they just act beautifully. You know, gorgeous. Right? And once they're all done, they could be a little stiff, so you might have to move them around, do this, you get them all, you know, working right, and the next thing you know, they act beautifully. And they just fall together so well. A little time consuming, but well worth it. Anyhow, hope that was of some help to you guys. And though they are pricey, they are really something to be said about. Anyways, thanks for watching.